full steam ahead on preparations for this weekend's opponent. And questions, please.
This question is going to be James Crapia from the Oregonian.
Mario, just wanted to get the status of Noah and Drew, and with that, what you saw from Nick and Nate, because both of them appeared to play pretty well. Nate in particular looked like he was shot out of a cannon there late. He tried to get a couple big plays. So status on your top two middle linebackers and what you saw from the backups who came in.
Good status on the top two guys. Noah and Drew are ready to roll, and extremely proud of both Nate and Nick. Both those guys, I mean, they've paid their dues now. Two guys that have walked on here. Obviously, Nate was put on scholarship earlier this year, has earned a scholarship after being here for a couple of years, but they stepped in, they threw their bodies around, they played physically, they were on point assignment wise, and they provided some really quality play for us and really helped our defense. So the other two guys are good to go.
Eric Scopel, 247 Sports.
Mario, last 2 weeks you've had a hard time putting teams away in the second half, outscored in both. Do you believe in a clutch factor, that kind of thing, and do you think this team has it? And I guess if they don't, how do you improve upon it?
I believe in finishing. We believe in finishing. That's what we do. It's what we preach. It's what we practice. It's what we train in the off season, and we've got to do a better job of doing it. I mean, when the moment is there and it's time to have it, it's time to execute. It's time to coach it the right way, and then time to get the results. So, and we didn't do that the past couple of weeks. We have done it in previous weeks, and certainly we did enough early in the season to put ourselves in a position to play for the North. But the past couple of weeks we haven't. And the best way to improve that is to recognize it, look it dead in the eye, and go work at it and improve it. So that's certainly a center of attention and focus for us this week.
Tyson Alger, The Athletic.
Have you seen any difference in the way just Travis Dye has carried himself this year? I mean, his averages per touch are pretty insane. I mean, year 3, his brother's gone. Just what's working for him this year?
Without question, his approach to the game, his approach to leadership in the locker room, on the field, his approach to practice, his voice being heard, his demeanor, and then, of course, the way he's been playing, his appetite to make explosive plays or make a block. You've seen him. I don't know if you've seen him. He's also on our kickoff team as well. To in any way, shape, or form contribute to the football team, shows his love for the game, his love for his teammates and our program. So I can't say enough good things about him. He served as captain a couple times and is on our leadership council. So really big things going on now and ahead for Travis Dye.
At Preem, for Sports.
Saw a lot of Christian Williams and Swinson and Dorless against Cal. Maybe a little bit fewer snaps than normal for Jordan Scott. Is that just those guys playing better, or is it being a conscious effort of keeping guys fresh?
It's keeping guys fresh, and the fact that those young guys have, those guys have been getting better. And, it's something we hit on all the time. Football is a development game, and I think sometimes guys get a little bit, antsy or frustrated when they don't get it early. Well, if you're a redshirt freshman and you're getting quality snaps, meaningful snaps, especially in the interior, that's a big thing. I mean, to me, that speaks loudly of what the future looks like, So those guys have worked hard. They've earned time. And when they got in there, you know what? They had some pretty consistent play. They had some really productive plays and others they'd like to have back. But overall, just doing a better job coming out of our hips and using our hands, striking blockers. And those guys certainly provided some good play for us.
Ryan Thorburn, Register Guard.
Mario, you kind of mentioned the stakes with the North Division. How important is that, I guess, for you guys to have, that championship still to play for yet, despite some disappointing losses?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's always one of the biggest goals that we have, with the focus being completely on making sure that we take care of the things we need to improve on. We've always been of that mindset that the next game is the most important game because it is the next game. Just so happens this one has even more at stake than just a regular season game. But we knew it, right? When you entered this season and everything's a conference game, every single game is almost like playoff football. We have a great opportunity on Saturday. Our guys recognize it, and they're eager for the opportunity.
Julian Minnesota, KZI.
Mario, did you see the response that you wanted out of these last few practices after back-to-back losses? And what are the things you look for out of a practice after losses as opposed to ones where maybe you win?
Well, I mean, I think all the time you look for consistency regardless of which way it goes. You look for a commitment to the process because at the end of the day, you don't you certainly assess what the result was, but what was the process getting to that result, and where can it improve? Because that's what's going to lead to better results. For 2 consecutive weeks, we haven't gotten the result we've wanted, and it's come down to the last minute of the game. So what does it tell you? Guys are scrapping, guys are fighting to try to get it done, and we've come up short. And the pieces, the instances, the plays, the coaching opportunities, they're all over the place, and they're there for us to improve upon. And I think when our guys, the more we watch that and the more we see ourselves improve in certain areas, the hungrier they are, the more the appetite to get the rest of those things ironed out, corrected, improved, move forward. That's what I see from our guys, and we expect a great couple of practices the next couple of days.
James.
Mario, what are the talking points on the 2 fumbles and the coaching points to correct them? Because they happen so quickly. Other than the ball going elsewhere on those plays, how does one correct Tyler there once he's wrapped up? I realize maybe a little tighter, but Johnny especially, that happened so fast. What could have been done to avoid that in the future? What could have been done in those instances?
Well, they're fighting for extra yardage, trying to win the game, but without the ball, can't do it. And squeezing the ball, squeezing the points of the ball, keeping that thing high and tight, especially in traffic, especially in some of these body positions to get yourself in. It's difficult. We rep it. We practice it. It's part of our turnover circuit to start practice every single day. And you don't get them back. And I know that those guys, it means a lot to them. They practice it well. We didn't get the result on Saturday. We got to do a better job coaching it.
Eric.
Mario, you referred to the place kicking battle a couple weeks ago being ongoing. Is that the same thing at quarterback, or is this Tyler's job going forward?
Well, we assess everybody on a weekly basis, but he is our starting quarterback. So,
Matt.
I realize Travis is playing really good football right now, but CJ played a little bit, so suggested that he was healthy enough to play. Was that just riding the hot hand with Travis against Cal, or has Travis maybe elevated himself a little higher than CJ right now?
Well, we see those guys as co-starters. We really do. We felt that, CJ, he was not quite at 100%, but he was more than well enough to play. And so he played. And then Travis did get the hot hand. We try to get Sean in there, get Cyrus in there. We like to get those guys rolling. They're all very different in their styles of running the football, and it provides some difficulty for defenses. So I think that's it. I don't think it's a matter of anything else or any other reason to read into it.
Ryan.
Mario, obviously Jimmy Lake was with Peterson, but is Washington's program at all have its own stamp under Jimmy compared to recent years? And just your thoughts on the Huskies coming in here.
There's a lot of respect for them. It's a really good football team. And, they play a really good brand of football, and our guys are really eager for the opportunity to play.
Tyson.
It counted just as 1 point, but just to see the way that Cattleman took those 2 penalties and then drilled a 41-yard extra point, it's the longest kick you guys have had in a couple of years. Just two games into what he's done, like what sort of confidence level do you have in him, and just what's his potential moving forward?
Every kick, we increase our confidence in him. And, it's I think game time, right, when the lights come on, a lot of stuff is revealed, right? Is the moment too big, or is the man big enough to handle the moment? And he's shown that, when he's been put out there with those successive penalties, it's almost like getting iced as a kicker, right? And having to do it again, and in this case, being backed up a couple times. So proud of him for the way he came through. Also proud of Cam the way he kicked off. Our coverage teams improved because we covered better, but also because we kicked better, and when those guys are on point, when Cattleman kicked like he kicked, like when Cam kicks off like he did, and when Tom punts like he punts, that brings a lot of energy to our team and special teams. So I know we kind of went off and talked about those other guys, but I felt they need to mention, because those guys really improved, and they help us improve in our coverage teams against a team that had a lot of success returning the ball.
Warren Williamson, Oregon Duck Football News.
Mario, conventional wisdom says to flush those losses after the 24-hour period. Just wondering how that affects you personally when you go home, and then how does that translate onto the practice field, after disappointing losses like that?
Oh, I think, I've gone into detail before how I was raised and the way I was coached and the coaching style that I've been exposed to and believe in. is when you're a real competitor, that stuff burns, and it should burn. It should burn deep. It should hurt. It should be extremely painful, but it also should be used as fuel. That's the only way that anything of that nature should be viewed and put to use. I think anything outside of that is destructive and not constructive. So when I see that, all I see is, again, opportunity to go out there and improve and bring the best possible coaching points, coaching regimen, energy, juice, motivation, practices, scenarios, situations to get our guys better. You live in, I think, we live and breathe this. It's a way of life. It's the DNA. So that's all it does. For when you're speaking about me personally, that's what it brings out. So I hope that makes sense.
Andrew Hobner, KZI.
Yeah, David Shaw set up in Seattle this weekend that it was easier to get plays off at the line because there was no crowd. It wasn't nearly as loud. This Oregon-Washington game is probably one of the loudest games you get at Autzen, year over year. What have you guys been doing to just kind of generate energy from the sidelines, and how, when rivalry games come along like this, do you prepare your guys for the idea that it's not going to be as loud as it typically might be? You don't have that 12th man, as it were.
Well, you practice at the stadium a lot with the ambient noise, the exact same conditions that we face both on the road and at home, using the video board and the speakers and everything else, and making sure that every single practice period is approached like another drive, another situation throughout the course of the game. Knowing that, our coaches often refer to it when you pack your stuff to go on the road, or when you pack your bag to go to the hotel the night before the game, you've also got to pack your enthusiasm, your energy, your toughness, because you're the ones that got to bring it. There is no line of fans and support on your walk through the tunnel. There is no explosion of noise when you're running onto the field, right? It's going to be generated from within. So, those are things that come with 2020 that I think are also, in a positive way, revealing of what someone could bring out of themselves and not rely so much on the exterior stuff. So it's got to be all from within. It's got to be all from the heart. And the amount of time that we spend on that is just as important as any other play, any other scheme that we practice.
James?
Mario, when Good got and created some havoc, a lot of those plays were unblocked. I realize there are plays by design that you leave a pin in unblocked to read them and things like that. But were there things that could have been done to better prevent that last week? And then going forward, when ZFT 58 is obviously very good at that himself, things that you look to adjust to this week to prevent him from doing the same thing that Good just did?
Yeah, well, I think there's two particular plays this past week where they were missed assignments. Okay, we do have schemes where you read certain players, both first level and second level. But there are two plays where we had a missed assignment, a missed block by a wide receiver, by a tackle, that it resulted in a negative play, a negative result when we were moving the ball well, and we ended up getting stopped on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. But that being said, we do have other plays where it's on the quarterback to read a certain player at the line of scrimmage or the second level. So you see a little bit of both, but there were two that were definitely on us completely. In terms of Washington and their edge players, I mean, I think it's more than just one guy, but they have wrecked games with their edge players. They're extremely talented on the edge. They lead the conference in sacks, I believe, the country as well, and they do it with speed, with power, with explosiveness. They use their hands extremely well. They go speed to power. Just very well coached, tremendous technicians on the edge. They've caused a lot of havoc, and I think people that have not taken that into account have paid the price in sack fumbles, in negative plays that they have created. So certainly they are a very talented defense, and those, between all those guys, because it's more than just one, between Bowman and 58. I mean, all these guys, Smalls does a great job. I've seen McDonald get in there. They present some blocking, challenges.
Jerry Thompson, Ducks Illustrated.
Yeah, Coach, with that being said, you see how Washington in the last 2 weeks has fallen behind by 21 points, and then they finish with a flourish. How do you address that? I mean, I know you're always going to try to go 100% every quarter, but have you something that they're doing that you can take advantage of why they have such slow starts offensively?
Well, I think two things. I mean, it certainly is a different year. And I think around the country, rarely have we seen, I know we haven't done it yet, put together a complete game. What you've seen in the second half, I believe they've outscored opponents almost 70-7. If you just count the last, 8 minutes of the Arizona game that they played, where they allowed, I think, 21 points when they had a lot of their reserves in there. So it shows that obviously they have a ton of really good players. They make a lot of plays, make good adjustments, and can be explosive as they need to. In terms of the first half, I think football is being played, and I think sometimes people make plays, but I don't see any drop off in their level of play. I see some adjustments. I see some plays being made on both sides of the ball. But you have to be aware of the fact that when you're playing conference football, you're playing rivalry games. I mean, you have to play to the very last second and overtime and beyond, just because, all these games are coming down to the fourth quarter. And it's going to require every bit you have and nothing but your very best.
Eric.
I realize this is a regular season game, but this week's for the Pac-12 North. Next week, if you win, it would be for the Pac-12 Championship. These weeks or these games, everything's on the line here. Given the last 2 weeks, how ready and prepared do you feel like this group is to take that on? Because it is a lot.
Oh, we don't look beyond tomorrow's practice. We set the picture on Sunday, what the opponent is, what the goals are, what we have to do to get there, and immediately set our minds on the task and the processes to get us there. That's how we've always had our best success, and when you come up a little bit short, like you mentioned, you realize a lot of things. You realize where you did good and where you could do better, and you realize where the edges are that you got to gain back to do so. And our guys are confident in that. Our coaching staff is confident in that. The edges are there to be had. And but we don't – all we focus on is making sure that we can play the very best football we can possibly play. We know we're facing a really good opponent, and our guys are really, really excited to attack the opportunity to get at practice tomorrow and put ourselves in a situation where we could have success.
Matt.
Do you anticipate Devin Williams being available this week? And then the punt return with illegal substitution, I guess, how do you correct that so it doesn't happen again? Because that was a pretty game-changing penalty for you guys, them going down and scoring.
It's inexcusable. That's as blunt as I could be about it. Different personnel grouping that involved a bunch of different DBs, and when the change took place, it wasn't done. So inexcusable. In terms of Devin Williams, we expect him to be available. We expect, I mentioned Drew Mathis already. We're not positive on Dante Manning. I know Nick Pickett was made available at the very last second last game, but we expect him fully available this game.
Time for two more. Max Torres, Scoop Duck.
Mario, building off what Eric said a little bit here, certainly a lot on your plate here in a very unique season, preparing your team, turning them around with a trip to the conference championship on the line. How do you manage all that while also, making sure things are locked in with recruits heading into the early signing day here?
I mean, that's what the job entails. It requires everything of what you have 24/7. And honestly, I enjoy every bit of it. I really, really do. I think that this profession, there has to be an understanding in your own home that you're going to be on. Like when you're the head coach, an assistant coach, or coordinator at a Power 5 institution, you're responsible 24/7, right? And then this year, obviously, you got to throw in COVID and protocol and all that stuff that goes with it. So, you learn. You just keep learning. You keep but you're always like, all right, how do we resolve this? How can we make this part better? So whenever, these things come from out of the blue, if you have an opt-out, right? You have an injury. If you have a quarantine case, whatever it may be, you just have to, because if you stop and you start thinking about, oh man, you're going to hurt your team, and your responsibilities to this team, its players, and the family. So I guess that's my best shot at answering that, brother. I'm trying to give you what it is. Just, stay on, stay alert, foot on the gas, and no stopping,
Last question goes to James.
All right, I wanted to get the status of a couple other guys, but also evaluation of how their replacements did. Daywood and Addison. But what you saw from Stevens and DJ in the secondary, and Hudson, who played probably the most that he's seen at receiver. What did you see from those guys, and what's the status of Daywood and Addison?
Okay, Daywood is unavailable. Addison will be available. You mentioned Chris Hudson, DJ James, and who else?
Steve Stevens.
And Steve Stevens. Okay. Yeah, I think all those guys played really well. I think Chris Hudson's going to be a great player. I mean, he shows it in practice. He's learning a lot of different positions. You know, we're not in a season like this, guys have to play in different spots, but he is playing better and certainly getting his chance in the return game as well. Steve Stevens and DJ, really a lot of confidence in both those guys right now and in the future, that both those guys are going to be excellent football players for us. They did really well in the game. Not only did they make, some really provided some really good quality play for us, but they were ready. They were ready for some of the other packages that we had that entailed them. So really high on those guys.